Today I'm going to be talking about my most anticipated book releases for the rest of 2023. I accidentally missed a video. I usually do these seasonally every 3 months, and I missed my summer anticipated releases, which would have been July, August, September. So we're just going to talk about the rest of the year. That's going to include books coming out in September, October, November, and December of 2023. I usually pre-plan these videos pretty in depth, and I go through and I prepare my full list of books. I only know of about 7 books coming out the rest of the year at this point, so I just figured we could do it as a discovery together. I will show you my process for how I find books that I'm excited about. It's really just by going through Goodreads. But first, I'm going to start with some of the books that I do already know about, and then we'll go into the exploratory phase. I'm going to be going by each month. So starting with September, the first book that I have to talk about is The Death I Gave Him by M.X. Liu. This is a sci-fi locked room thriller, but I usually find anytime there is a insert genre plus thriller, it's not usually as thrillery as I might come to expect. So I'm not going into this hoping for a really intense thriller. I'm going in with like a little bit of a different expectation, but this is a retelling of Hamlet and it's coming out on September 12th. It is also a queer book. It's a lyrical queer sci-fi retelling of Hamlet as a locked room thriller, and it's a long one. It's 432 pages. You're following a character named Hayden, whose life is ripped apart when he finds his father murdered in their lab and the camera logs erased. The killer can only have been after one thing, the Sisyphus formula the two of them developed together, which might one day reverse death itself. Hoping to lure the killer into the open, Hayden steals the research. In the process, he uncovers a recording his father made in the days before his death and a dying wish: avenge me. With the lab on lockdown, Hayden is trapped with 4 other people: his uncle Charles, lab technician Gabriel Rasmussen, research intern Felicia Zia, and their head of security, Felicia's father Paul, one of whom must be the killer. His only sure ally is the lab's resident AI, Horatio, who has been his dear friend and companion since its creation. With the world collapsing, Hayden must navigate the building's secrets, uncover his father's lies, and push the boundaries of sanity in the pursuit of revenge. I am a fan of Hamlet, but it has been many years since I've read it, so I may need to brush myself up a little bit on Hamlet before reading this one, but it sounds like it'll be a fun time. Next up, one I am very excited about is Mona Wad's new book, Rouge, which is coming out on September 12th. This one has to do with the concept of beauty, I believe. It says it is a horror-tinted gothic fairy tale about a lonely dress shop clerk whose mother's unexpected death sends her down a treacherous path in pursuit of youth and beauty. Can she escape her mother's fate and find a connection that is more than skin deep? It says that it's Snow White meets Eyes Wide Shut, and I have not seen Eyes Wide Shut, but I've had it on my want to watch list for a long time, so I'm gonna make sure to watch that before I read this book so that I can connect the references there. And it's supposed to be a surreal descent into the dark side of beauty, envy, grief, and the complicated love between mothers and daughters, which are like all of my buzzwords. Except for beauty, I don't really read a lot of books about the dark side of beauty, but that does seem to be a theme that's really coming out a lot recently. I've seen a lot of books recently have this theme talking about beauty and the expectations for women. So maybe if I enjoy this, it can be a good kickoff to exploring more books like that, because I know that's been a really big theme lately, but it's Mona Wad. I'm really excited for a new book from her, and I cannot wait to read it. And then coming out on September 28th, we have The Christmas Guest by Peter Swanson, which seems to be a short little novella. It's only 112 pages. I don't know about Peter Swanson and me, but it is a very short little Christmas novella, so I might give it a try. This is coming out a little early though in September. Ashley Smith, an American art student in London for her junior year, was planning on spending Christmas alone, but a last-minute invitation from fellow student Emma Chapman brings her to Starwood Hall, country residence of the Chapman family. The Cotswood Manor house, festooned in pine boughs and crammed with guests for Christmas week, is a dream come true for Ashley. She is mesmerized by the cozy firelit house, the large family, and the charming village of Clevemoor, but also by Adam Chapman, Emma's aloof and handsome brother. But Adam is being investigated by the local police over the recent brutal slaying of a girl from the village, and there is a mysterious stranger who haunts the woodland path between the hall and the local pub. Ashley begins to wonder what kind of story she is actually inhabiting. Is she in a grand romance, a gothic tale, or has she wandered into something far more sinister and terrifying than she'd ever imagined? Doesn't sound the most interesting to me, but it's short and it's seasonal and I might give it a try. That is all the books that I know about for sure coming out in September, so now I'm just gonna browse the new releases section of Goodreads and see if anything else sticks out to me. There's another book in the Thursday Murder Club coming out, but I'm not reading that series, but if anyone is, there's a new book coming out in September. Jessica Knoll has this new book, Bright Young Women. She's the author of Luckiest Girl Alive, which I do think I read back in the day when it came out. I watched the movie adaptation that they made last year with Mila Kunis, and I don't think this is gonna be a book for me. It's inspired by the real-life sorority targeted by America's first celebrity serial killer and his final murderous spree. I don't know, Luckiest Girl Alive was just a tough watch, so I don't know if I want to read another book from Jessica Knoll. It's a story about two women from opposite sides of the country who became sisters in their pursuit of the truth. I don't know, not capturing my attention, but maybe if it gets good reviews, I might be more inclined to check it out. Oh, I forgot Millie Bobby Brown has a book coming out. This is nothing that I would be interested in because it's a historical fiction, World War II type of story, but I'm sure a lot of people will be talking about that. Murder in the Family by Kara Hunter. I have not heard about this. A shocking thriller about a cold case, a fictional true crime series, and the family caught in the middle. 6 episodes, 1 killer. It was a case that gripped the nation. Luke Ryder, the stepfather of a filmmaker, then aged 10, was found dead in the garden in their suburban family home. The murder's never been solved. Guy Howard's mother and 2 half-sisters were in the house at the time, but they all swear they saw nothing. Despite a high-profile police investigation, no suspect was ever charged, but some murder cases are simply too big to forget. Now comes the sensational new Netflix series Infamous, dedicated to investigating and cracking the case. The family will speak, the truth will come out. Are you ready to see it? Doesn't really interest me necessarily, but I haven't heard of it, so I'll see if I end up hearing some reviews. Ooh, then we have Mother-Daughter Murder Night by Nina Simon, which I do think sounds kind of cute and fun. It is a fun, fresh, and twisty debut whodunit about a grandmother, mother, daughter trio who come together as amateur sleuths to solve a murder in their coastal California town. I'm not always the biggest fan of like cozy mystery stuff, which it seems like this is probably going to be a cozy, but this one does sound kind of cute to me, following the grandmother, mom, and daughter all being amateur sleuths trying to solve a little murder. I feel like that might be a fun, light-hearted read. I could also see this being the type of book that makes it to the Goodreads Choice Awards, because there's always got to be like some classic kind of mysteries sprinkled in the mystery thriller category as well, so I might check this one out. Chuck Palahniuk has a new novel coming out. I've actually never read from Chuck Palahniuk. This has a wildly low average rating so far, 2.78. It's a hilarious horror satire about a family of professional killers responsible for the most atrocious events in history and the younger brothers that are destined to take over. I don't know about that. I can't believe the rating is so low already. That's really surprising. But yeah, I've never read from Chuck Palahniuk. I don't think this would be where I started, but if you keep up with his books, there's a new one coming out. Hemlock Island by Kelly Armstrong is coming out in September. I forgot about this. So I actually got an ARC of this one sent to me physically from the publisher. I did read it in August. You'll hear about it more in my wrap up this month. I did not like it. I did not like this book at all. It was just not for me. But it's about this woman who rents her vacation home out because she used to own it with her husband, but now they're separated. She can't afford it on her own, so she rents it out to people on this island, Hemlock Island. And these weird things keep happening, like guests keep complaining. There's like blood and dead animals and weird occult symbol things hung up, and so she goes out there to investigate it, and she brings her niece, and then her ex-husband and his new woman show up as well, and then like town cop and his sister show up. It's like all these people who know each other, and they try to figure out what's going on, and it takes a really bizarre direction, and I just didn't really love it, but I have seen some people anticipating it. So if you like really bizarre, kind of silly, goofy horror books, maybe it'll be for you, but it just was not for me. The Stranger Upstairs by Lisa M. Matlin. I've seen this cover. I haven't really looked into this one yet. It says a social media influencer with a secret past buys a murder house to renovate, but finds more than she bargained for behind the peeling wallpaper in this gothic psychological debut. All right, I'm interested. That sounds interesting, a murder house, but it's probably something supernatural, I would assume, if it's gothic. I don't know, supernatural is not always for me. The new owner of the Blackwood house, she's determined that the fixer-upper will help reach a new audience, but as she paints over the past, she finds things, bizarre accidents, menacing notes start appearing everywhere. She becomes convinced that someone or something's out to kill her. With every passing moment, her life spirals further out of control, and with it, her sense of reality. I don't know, that actually sounds kind of interesting. I think I might pick this one up. This one was not on my radar. I just have seen the cover floating around, but I don't know. That kind of captured my attention. I'll probably try to pick this one up. Suddenly a Murder by Lauren Munoz. I haven't heard of this one either. 7 friends throw a 1920s themed party where it's all pretend until one of them is murdered. One of us is lying, meets Knives Out, and this Killer Locked Room Mystery. I wonder if this is adult or young adult. All right, so it does look to be a young adult, which is not my favorite thing, but it sounds fun. I'll probably look out for reviews of this one, and if it's getting really solid reviews, I'll pick it up, but like, I'm just not gravitating towards young adult recently, but this does sound fun. A 1920s themed getaway party at the Ashwood Manor. Cassidy's boyfriend turns up dead. Investigators say that he was murdered. Now every party guest is a suspect. There's Izzy, who brought the knife. To find the killer, everyone must undergo a grueling interrogation, all while locked in a state where suddenly the greatest luxury is innocence. Doesn't sound wildly unique, but I do love a locked room mystery. Thieves Gambit by Kavion Lewis. This is the Inheritance Games meets Ocean's 11 in this cinematic heist thriller where a cutthroat competition brings together the world's best thieves, and one thief is playing for the highest stakes of all her mother's life. I don't really gravitate towards heist books, but this sounds kind of fun, and I like cinematic thrillers, so this might be one I would check out. The grand prize is a wish for anything in the world, a wish that could save her mom. Rosh tries her best to stick to the family creed, trust no one whose last name isn't Quest, but with the stakes this high, Ross will have to decide who to con and who to trust before time turns out. I might check that one out. I do love a con novel. Scenes of the Crime by Jilly Gagnon. An ambitious screenwriter tries to solve her friend's disappearance by recreating their fateful final girls' trip in this riveting locked room mystery. I've never heard of this author. I haven't heard of this book. A remote winery, a missing friend, and a bunch of sour grapes. Not one that's really capturing my attention. Might keep my eye out for some reviews. Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. I still have not read a Rachel Harrison. This one is about a cynical 20-something who must confront her unconventional family's dark secrets in this fiery, irreverent horror novel. I don't know that this will be the first one I pick up. I feel like I see such hit or miss things for her books. I do want to try her books out at some point. I don't know which one I would try first, but I don't think it would be this one. Oh, Stephen King's new book, Holly, is coming out in September. This is featuring a character from other books of his. I don't think you have to have read those to read this, but it's probably always more satisfying if you have. I've not read much Stephen King, and I don't know if I'm going to pick this one up unless it becomes part of like the Goodreads Choice Awards and I'm reading a category and I might have to do it. But in general, you're following Holly Gibney, who is trying to solve the gruesome truth behind multiple disappearances in a Midwestern town. So it doesn't sound like something I'm going to try to pick up unless something makes me in the future. And then The September House by Carissa Orlando. This is one I've been sort of interested in. A woman is determined to stay in her dream home even after it becomes a haunted nightmare in this compulsively readable, twisty, and layered debut novel. I don't think this is one I'm going to immediately pick up. I want to check out some reviews of it first to see if it's a good fit for me, but it's been kind of on my radar. When Margaret and her husband Hal bought the large Victorian house for sale at a reasonable price, they couldn't believe they finally had a home of their own. Then they discovered the hauntings. Every September, the walls drip blood, the ghosts of former inhabitants appear, and all of them are terrified of something that lurks in the basement. Most of those people would flee. Margaret is not most people. Margaret is staying. It's her house. But after 4 years, Hal can't take it anymore and he leaves abruptly. Now he's not returning calls, and their daughter, Catherine, who knows nothing about the hauntings, arrives intent on looking for her missing father. To make things worse, September has just begun, and with every attempt Margaret and Catherine make at finding Hal, the hauntings grow more harrowing. Like, supernatural stuff's just not really something I gravitate towards a lot, so it's not screaming at me, but if I hear a lot of good reviews, I may be convinced to check it out. And I think that is about it for September, so let's check out books that are coming out in October. There are 3 books I already had on my radar for October. The first one is a sequel. It is Everyone on This Train is a Suspect by Benjamin Stevenson, which is the follow-up to Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone, I think it's called. And I really did enjoy that mystery thriller. This one does not have a lot of details on it right now. It's coming out October 17th, and all it says is a train journey, a dead body, and suspects who share one thing in common: how to get away with murder. I'm going to be picking it up because I did enjoy the first book. I'm just surprised we don't have more details by now because it's not that far away, but hopefully it'll be another fun one. I'm also interested in Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. I did really enjoy Mary by Nat Cassidy, and this is another horror book from this author. It harnesses the creeping paranoia of Rosemary's Baby and the urban horror of Salem's Lot, set in an exclusive New York City residential building. Anna and Reed needed a lucky break. The horrifically complicated birth of their first child has left Anna paralyzed, bitter, and with mobility, with her relationship with Reed with resentment for her baby. That's about to change with the words any New Yorker would love to hear: affordable housing lottery. They've won an apartment in the Deptford, one of Manhattan's most revered buildings, with beautiful vistas of Central Park and stunning architecture. Reed dismisses disturbing events and Anna's deep unease and paranoia as the price of living in New York are odd, but he can't explain the needle-like bite marks on the baby. And then we have The Reformatory, which is a new novel from Tananarive coming out October 31st. It's a long one, 576 pages, but it does sound really good. It's set in Jim Crow, Florida, and follows Robert Stephen Jones as he's sent to a segregated reform school that is a chamber of terrors where he sees the horrors of racism and injustice for the living and the dead. Robert Stephen Jones Jr. is sent to Gracetown School for Boys for kicking a white boy's leg, but the Gracetown School for Boys isn't just any reform school. As Robert finds, it's a segregated school that is haunted from the boys who have died there. The Reformatory is an eerie, frightening novel that explores the horrors of our history. So far, I've only read the one book from Tananarive, I think, The Between, and I really liked that. Her writing is incredible. Historical fiction, horror, not usually my thing, but I feel like I'm gonna enjoy it if it's from Tananarive. That's all I had planned. Now let's explore. Oh boy, okay, so Ashley Winstead's new book is coming out, Midnight is the Darkest Hour, and I have just never been a lover of Ashley Winstead's books. She is a very popular author. I have nothing against her. Her books just don't resonate with me. I don't know why. I didn't love In My Dreams I Hold a Knife or The Last Housewife. I gave In My Dreams I Hold a Knife a 3-star. I gave The Last Housewife, I believe, a 2-star. This one sounds interesting. It's a gothic southern thriller, and it's about a killer haunting a small Louisiana town where two outcasts, the preacher's daughter and the boy from the wrong side of the tracks, hold the key to uncovering the truth. And I think this has something to do with vampires. I think they think the killer is a vampire. Yeah, the story of the Low Man, a vampiric figure said to steal into sinners' bedrooms and kill them on moonless nights. I'm just not sure about it because I just haven't loved anything that I've read from her before, but she's so popular that I'm gonna get FOMO and I'm sure I'm gonna pick it up. It does say it's for fans of Verity and A Flicker in the Dark, which I did like those books, so I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna pick it up. I don't know if I'm gonna love it. I'm not seeing too many other books coming out in October that I'm interested in. It's kind of weird. You would think October would have more thriller and horror books. There's The Intern by Michelle Campbell. That's a thriller. I did get an ARC sent to me from the publisher. I'm just not super interested in it. It's like a legal thriller following a law student under the spell of a charismatic judge. It sounds a little bit more lit-fic to me. I'm just not super interested in that. Starling House by Alex E. Harrow has kind of caught my attention, but I do think this is going to be more fantasy than anything else. Yeah, it's a fantasy gothic kind of novel about a small town haunted by secrets that can't stay buried and the sinister house that sits at the crossroads of it all. Maybe I'd pick it up, but I wouldn't like rush to pick it up. It's got a lot of good reviews. I might check it out, but not calling to me. Oh, okay, I forgot about this book, Edenville. So this is said to be good for fans of Paul Tremblay and Stephen Graham Jones, which is me. I fall into those buckets. After publishing his debut novel, The Shattered Man, to disappointing sales and reviews, Campbell P. Marion is struggling to find inspiration for a follow-up. When Edenville College invites him to join as a writer in residence, he's convinced that his bad luck has finally taken a turn. His girlfriend, Quinn, isn't so sure. She grew up near Edenville and has good reasons for not wanting to move back. Cam disregards her skepticism and accepts the job, with Quinn reluctantly following along. But there's something wrong in Edenville. Despite the charming old ladies milling about Main Street and picturesque sunflowers dotting the sidewalks, poison lurks beneath the surface. As a series of strange and ominous events escalate among Edenville and its residents, Cam and Quinn find themselves entangled in a dark and disturbing history. Told with equal parts horror and humor, Edenville explores the urban legends that fuel our nightmares and the ways in which ambition can overshadow our best instincts. This one's coming out on October 3rd, and to be honest, the premise doesn't sound wildly interesting to me, like, oh, they're in a town and it's weird. But the fact that it's being compared to Paul Tremblay and Stephen Graham Jones, and the fact that it says it's told with equal parts horror and humor do stick out to me, so I think this is one I'm going to keep on my radar. There's also a new Caitlin Starling book coming out in October, Last to Leave the Room. I have not read from Caitlin Starling before. This is a speculative horror. It's set in the city of San Sirocco, which is sinking, the basement of Dr. Tamsin Rivers. The arrogant, selfish head of the research team assigned to find the source of the subsidence is sinking faster. As Tamsin grows obsessed with the distorting dimensions of the room, she finds a door that didn't exist before, and one night it opens to reveal an exact physical copy of her. This doppelganger is sweet and biddable, where Tamsin is calculating and cruel. It appears fully terribly human, passing every test Tamsin can devise. But the longer the double exists, the more Tamsin begins to forget pieces of her life, to lose track of time, to grow terrified of the outside world. As her employer grows increasingly suspicious, Tamsin must try to hold herself together long enough to figure out what her double wants from her and just where the mysterious door leads. Okay, I'm interested in that. It is coming out October 10th. I will definitely be checking that out. That sounds really interesting. That's about all I'm seeing for October, so let's pop over to November releases. There is a new book coming out from Nita Prose, The Mystery Guest, which is a follow-up to The Maid. Didn't really enjoy that. I won't be reading it, but if you did, there's a sequel coming out if you're interested. Gillian McMillan has a new book, The Manor House, a terrifying story of what can happen after all your dreams come true. Childhood sweethearts are a normal, loving couple until a massive lottery win changes their lives overnight. They've moved into a custom, beautiful house. They have fancy cars, blah, 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 blah. But the dream world quickly turns into a nightmare when Tom is found dead in the swimming pool. Nicole is upset. There's a nice young couple who live in the manor, but she's not entirely by herself out there in the country. There's a nice young couple who live in the manor itself along with their middle-aged housekeeper, and an old friend of Tom's from school has turned up to help her get through the grief, but big money can bring big problems. This does not sound interesting to me. I will probably not be picking that up. If you like Gillian McMillan, you want to read it, that one's coming out. There's a book called The Engagement Party by Finley Turner. Never heard of this author. It's a debut thriller in the tradition of Sarah Pinborough and Ruth Ware. A couple gets engaged. Champagne is popped, body is found in the home, family secrets. Not super interesting to me. Christina Henry has a new book, Good Girls Don't Die. A sharp-edged, supremely twisty thriller about three women who find themselves trapped inside stories they know aren't their own. I personally did not love Near the Bone. Actually greatly disliked it. So I'm not like really excited about a new book from Christina Henry, but let's see what it's about. Celia wakes up in a house that's supposed to be hers. There's a little girl who claims to be her daughter and a man who claims to be her husband, but Celia knows this family and this life is not hers. Allie is supposed to be on a fun weekend trip, but then her family's boyfriend unexpectedly invites the group to a remote cabin in the woods. No one else believes Allie, but she is sure that something about this trip is very, very wrong. Maggie just wants to be home with her daughter, but she's in a dangerous situation and she doesn't know who put her there or why. She'll have to fight with everything she has to survive. 3 women, 3 stories, only one way out. You know what? That actually does sound kind of interesting to me. I like when there are separate stories and then they all come together somehow. This one's coming out November 14th. It's probably not one I'm going to immediately pick up since I didn't enjoy the last book I read from Christina Henry, but that sounds kind of interesting. Darcy Coates has a new book, Where He Can't Find You. Don't walk alone or the Stitcher will find you. Don't stay out late or the Stitcher will take you. Don't close your eyes or the Stitcher will remake you. I've only read one book from Darcy Coates before, so she's not someone I like immediately pick up. And again, supernatural kind of things, not really my style. Abby and her friends are caught in a game of cat and mouse. I don't know, probably not one I'll pick up. That's about all I'm seeing for November, so I guess we'll move on to December. This is our last month of releases to look at for the year. I am super excited about Heartstopper Volume 5. That's not a thriller or horror book, which is what I usually focus on here, but I'm really excited for that. I cannot wait to read it. And I think it's gonna be the final installment. I'm not sure, but I love Heartstopper. I'm watching season 2 right now, and it just fills my heart with so much joy. So I'm very excited for another book in that graphic novel series. I think these are both thrillers. The Other Mothers by Catherine Faulkner and 5 Bad Deeds by Kaz Freyer. I've heard of Catherine Faulkner. I have not heard of Kaz Freyer, but they both kind of just look like domestic thrillers to me. This one is about murder, class, and motherhood in London's toniest communities. What does toniest mean? I do not even know what that means. And then this one's a gripping tale of revenge, loyalty, and the secrets hidden between the walls of the most beautiful home in town. Suburban, domestic kind of thrillers. Nothing I'm like gravitating towards. Kigo Higashino has a new book coming out in this detective series. I haven't read those books, but I know they're kind of popular. So that's coming out in December if you're excited about that. 2 Dead Wives by Adele Parks. An overprotective father has lived as a recluse until his adult daughter, Stacey Jones, returns from Paris in need of radical brain surgery. Peculiarly, he appears to almost welcome her illness. It does at least mean she is back under his roof and in his control. Ew, no, I don't like reading about men like that. The Weekend Retreat by Tara Leskowski. 3 couples, 3 days, a family getaway to die for. When a torrential rainstorm hits, plunging them into darkness, the answers prove all too deadly. Wow, I am also just not seeing anything that I'm interested in for December. I guess it's not going to be a very busy end of the year for thriller and horror books for me. Okay, I forgot Luc Dumas has a new book coming out, The Paleontologist. Luc Dumas is the author of A History of Fear, which I really liked the idea of. It was just not perfectly executed for me. It just came off kind of boring. This one follows a haunted paleontologist returning to the museum where his sister was abducted years earlier and is faced with a terrifying and murderous spirit. The museum, things he didn't expect. Are these the ravings of a madman or something supernatural at play? It's a ghost story unlike any other that will haunt you long after you turn the final page. I just really want to enjoy a book from this author. This one just doesn't sound up my alley. Well, I guess that's all I really found. Not a ton of books coming out in the rest of the year that I'm super excited about, which is honestly probably good because I did just get through my entire physical TBR and I don't want to fill it back up too aggressively. You know, I want to have some time to read some backlist books, so not the biggest deal. But I'll put together an image of all of the books I talked about today, the ones that I'm actually interested in, the ones that I will be picking up, just to kind of recap all of the most anticipated books on my radar for the rest of the year. But let me know down in the comments below if I missed anything. Let me know if there are any books coming out that you're excited about for the rest of the year that I did not mention or find today on Goodreads, because it just was not delivering a ton today. And let me know if there are any of the books that I mentioned today that you are also interested in picking up. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!